Hello, and welcome to Steve's Mixtapes. My guest mixer this week is like Gavin Morgan from episode 3 and Ian Grice from episode 13, a member of the Wedding Present online forum. He's also the longest standing member, having joined on the 27th of January, a Tuesday in 2004 at 7:21 p.m, the first of the 11 people that joined that day, and I'm going to ask him about that in a moment. We were laughing about this earlier in our sort of pre-interview chat, because although this mixer and I have actually known each other online for a long time and feel in many ways we know each other well, I didn't even actually know his surname until today. So to people on the Wedding Present Forum, he's Johnny Mac, but welcome to John McMahon.
Thank you very much.
So do tell me, how come, because you're not one of the people to set it up, because I know that you're not an IT-minded person
No.
in any way, shape or form. How did you come to be the very first person to join the Wedding Present Forum?
Pure luck. Funnily enough, I do remember the exact moment. And there used to be an old sort of 80s style forum.
Like a message board.
A message board, yeah. And I used to check into that regularly. It was quite good. Some of the band used to get involved in that. I know Simon Cleve used to sort of answer questions, usually guitar techie questions, that people like nerds like me had. So yeah, it was the old days. It was old fashioned. It looked very 80s. And then one day I just clicked into it and was redirected to a fancy new olive green website, message board, forum, whatever it was. So I joined up, and I must admit I wasn't the first person, because there was a guy called Matt who had set it up and he ran it. But then after a few years, he relinquished that and deleted himself off the system. So now if you look at the users, I am the longest serving. So yeah, so it was just by pure chance. But I remember it. I remember being sat in my back bedroom in a North Manchester satellite town a long time ago. And yeah.
Right, okay. So one of the things we were also talking about before, I said before that we sort of know each other well, in that if I, for example, put a song up online, I have a pretty good idea of A, whether you'll like it or not, and the sort of things you'll say about it. But I don't know a lot about you personally. For example, surname I mentioned, job, and so on. And that's because, apart from the Wedding Present Forum, you don't really go on social media at all, do you? Is that just because you're a private person, or because you don't like social media, or what's the reason?
I think it's a little bit of both. I am a very private person. I mean, doing this is way, way, way out of my comfort zone. And to be honest, whilst I don't really engage with social media, you can't avoid seeing things, in, the modern world. You do come across things. And to be honest, I do find a lot of it frustrating, irritating, tedious, annoying, really annoying. I think if I want to have a good sleep at night, don't be, flicking through Facebook or, Twitter or whatever, because you'll just get riled up, by some of the things that are on there. And admittedly, there's always a lot of good stuff. It's just the, wading through the bad stuff that, I don't know, if I avoid that, then it's probably better for my mental well-being, and I find life is better if I just go and sit in the garden and have a cup of coffee than scroll down Twitter for 10 minutes and get really annoyed.
Very sensible. I mean, you can control to a certain extent what you see. I mean, I don't see many ads on Facebook, for example, because I stick to the music groups and all the rest of it. But no, I totally understand that. So, as you're a private person, I'm not going to ask you any personal questions. I am going to ask you though about your first choice, your hit the ground running track.
Yeah. Well, as you know, and like you do, I live in mid Wales, out by the coast. Moved here just 17 years ago. Why does any man move anywhere? Well, for the love of a good woman. So I'd met Lucy. She'd shifted up here from London to go to university. And like a lot of people in this part of the world, they come to the university and they never leave. So I ended up moving to Wales, like I say, 17 years ago. Before moving, I was sort of aware of sort of the importance of sort of Welsh culture, the sort of the independence movement in Wales, the identity. But moving here, it really hammered that home. And one of the first things I did was sign up for Welsh lessons. Wales has a language. I'm in Wales. I should use it. So I did. This guy C Cymraeg, somebody Cymru. I lived here. I worked in the National Library for 7 years, where Welsh was the language of the day. And it was just really important that I thought, you've got to engage with this. It's vibrant, it's refreshing, it's wonderful. It really is good. This whole sort of Welsh identity, the art, the music, the culture, and
it was because I came to Wales I think about 2 years before you. And it's interesting over where you are, because you're not that far. I think you're about an hour away from me, about 45 minutes, an hour away from me. But you're further west, so it's probably more prevalent, the Welsh speaking over there. There's the bit of Powys I'm in, there's like pockets of it. There's certain villages where nearly everybody speaks Welsh, and there's certain villages or towns like Welshpool down the road from me, you'll very rarely hear any Welsh there. But one of the things that really, you talked about the culture, one of the things that really struck me when I came to work in a school in Wales was the Eisteddfod, because if you've grown up in England, there is nothing like an Eisteddfod. And for those of you listening who don't know much about Wales, you're probably thinking it's all just to do with singing and choirs and so on. It's not. It involves a school Eisteddfod involves all sorts of things, like young men putting dresses on and wellies and doing disco dancing and all sorts of wacky things, doesn't it?
It is, yeah. It almost it's a real. It is an arts festival, and it's the whole gamut of it. Yes, there's your traditional stuff. But there's always at the Eisteddfod there's a stage, Maesty, which is it's sort of the younger side of things. So it is sort of modern, music, shall we say? So there's there's all the modern Welsh bands, what the kids go to, and it's not your stuffy old, men in robes playing a harp, and it's really vibrant. It's really good. So with that sort of steered me for my hit the ground running tune. But more so, what focused it more was this song that it's called Cymru Lloegr a Llanrwst, which means Wales, England, and Llanrwst. Now, Llanrwst is a town in Wales, which I believe has twice throughout history, even as late as I think the 1940s, applied to the United Nations to be recognised as an independent state.
Okay. So, I have been to Llanrwst. There's a training centre of some description there. I've delivered training up there once or twice, but it's not. It's Conwy, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Conwy Valley, yeah. So it's a really nice part of Wales, but obviously that sort of spirit of independence is really strong there. And their sort of belief in Llanrwst as a place, those people who live there as a population, and they have that belief and that untrammeled sort of thought process that, look, this is who we are, and we should stand up and shout about it. And this is a song I think that sort of alludes to that, but generally it's at this place in the playlist because it does hit the ground running. It's a bit of a rollicker. And it does fly along and rattle along a bit, and it's basically sort of I don't know, what do you call it, new wave post punk? I don't know, but it gets going. It tells a story in Welsh, of course, so maybe some people won't understand it, but I believe there is a YouTube video with translated lyrics on if people want to look it up. And it's basically about a rough and ready night out, a lot of violence in the pub, and it's marvellous.
That was a Criff with Cymru
No,
Lloegr Allan Roost from their album Atalnod Llawn
I
from
can't. Yeah,
2005. So the band's name in English means the bodies, and the song, as Johnny said, is England and Wales and Llan Roost. Um, interesting. They started. I was reading up about them. They started the band when they were at school, Ysgol Duffer and Conwy, and their first manager was also their geography teacher. Interestingly enough, the other thing I found out is that Mark Roberts from the band went on to be in Catatonia with Cerys Matthews.
that's right.
Sadly, I know, well, this will make you sad. According to their Wikipedia page, anyway, they broke up because they realised they would never get mainstream success singing in Welsh. Which,
Well, understandable but disappointing. But
yeah.
yeah, doesn't that just say something?
It does. It does. Okay, so there is a question that I ask every guest that comes on, which is: have you always been somebody for making mixes and compilations? Is there a big box of old C90s in your loft?
Yes, I have, and there is a big box of mixtapes, and I suppose even when they became mix CDs and now mix playlists, they still exist and they still get made. And it does lead in well to the next song, which is Something Old. And this is a song by the Velvet Underground, which I don't know. I suppose we're of a similar vintage, Steve. So you'll remember 1980s. That thud on the doormat every Wednesday morning as the enemy arrived.
He came in, yes.
Yeah,
Read it
down.
front to back every week.
Yeah, coming out of the sixth form common room, black hands, staying with ink.
Yes, the print was terrible with the enemy.
It was, yeah. But yeah, so you know you would scour that, cover to cover, and you'd sort of. There were always references, and people like Jack Kerouac was always referenced, and the Velvet Underground were always referenced. Now, we didn't have Spotify in them days. You couldn't find things that you could just go and check that out. You really had to, work for things. And, I remember sort of reading things and, be sat there in double geography thinking, what is Black Angel's death song and what the hell has it got to do with the new Cocteau Twins album? And it's just that sort of mystique almost, and so that the Velvet Underground was sort of present in my sort of my knowledge, but just I had no idea what they sounded like or what they looked like or anything. And then, fortunately, I was given a mixtape, and this is sort of mid to late 80s, by a young girl that I had some sort of vague romantic notions towards, and she did me a mixtape, and on that tape were two Velvet Underground songs. So this was the first time I'd heard them, and I was absolutely blown away. Those songs were Femme Fatale and Pale Blue Eyes. Next weekend, I'm on the bus, 17 Express, Rochdale to Bury, to go to Vibes Records. Picked up a Best of the Velvet Underground compilation. Get back, and now that was a bit of an eye-opener because there's two clear sides for me to the Velvet Underground. There's the nice Faye Twee Femme Fatale,
Well, funny you say that because I've actually written out to say something about this because although I love the song that you've chosen, I love the two you've mentioned. When I was on Sombrero Fallout with Ian Forth, I chose a Velvet Underground song, but I picked I Heard Her Call My Name, which is very much the other end of the spectrum that I think we're talking about.
Yes. So I mean, and I'll always move towards the sort of the more gentle melodic stuff. But I do enjoy the filthy, dirty noise. But I don't know, I just never often feel the urge to say, that's what I really need to hear right now. But there are times when I just need that sort of, nice, easy, relaxed, chiming melody of songs like Femme Fatale. But yeah, this is neither of those songs. This is it was a song. It was originally called in 1968, so it fits the 50-year window, even though it wasn't officially released until '85 on the VU album. And it's Stephanie Says, and I think it's just the most beautiful, gorgeous few minutes. The viola line, it drifts in just I don't know, it just feels like this warm embrace coming on. It's like a soft kiss arriving. And then cutting through it, you've got this glockenspiel that pins bang, bang, bang gently right through it, just holding it all together. And I just think, when I hear that, I just think of some magnificent tailor with a bolt of Harris tweed and a pattern, just pinning it all together and holding it. And that glockenspiel just holds everything together. And yeah, I know this won't please a lot of people, but I think there should be more glocking pop. You know, I really do. That is just absolutely fantastic. And that melody and that chime, it just runs right through the song. And I think it's glorious. I really do.
Stephanie says that she wants to know why she's given half her life to people she hates now. Stephanie says when answering the phone, what country shall I say is calling from across the world? But she's not afraid to die. The people all call her Alaska, between worlds, so the people ask her, 'cause it's all in her mind. It's all in her mind. Stephanie says that she wants to know why it is, though she's the door, she can't be the room. Stephanie says, but doesn't hang up the phone. What seashell sea is calling from across the world? But she's not afraid to die. The people all call her Alaska, between worlds, so the people ask her, 'cause it's all in her mind. It's all in her mind. They're asking, is it good or bad? It's such an icy feeling. It's so cold in Alaska. It's so cold in Alaska. It's so cold in Alaska.
The Velvet Underground with Stephanie Says, that finally saw the light of day officially on the VU compilation album in 1985, but certainly meets the criteria for something old more than 50 years ago. Right, so we're moving on to something new, and another standard question I ask Johnny is, in this age of the ridiculous deluge of music that comes out every day, something ridiculous like 100,000 songs every day on various platforms, how on earth do you keep up? How on earth do you make sure that you at least vaguely abreast of contemporary music, or do you just not try?
Do I not try? A bit of both. You're right, there's far too much to keep up with. I just found it overwhelming at times. The radio station of choice in the house is generally Six Music. So, it might not be new, but it's quite often new to me, which is good enough. Of idle moments, on these long winter nights out in the hills of mid Wales, sometimes I'll just fire up the old laptop and browse Bandcamp and just see where it takes me.
Yeah, I like having a wander around
things. You click and you click and you click, and within 10 minutes, you're sort of a million miles from where you started.
Yeah, because it always gives you that little set of albums at the bottom, doesn't it? If you like this, you might like this. So
that's it. Yeah, and I found
Martin Brahma was on another episode. He just goes on YouTube
Right, yeah.
and watches videos, and then the little column down the right chooses something else and just follows that round. So yeah, it's a good way of doing it.
It is, yeah, I've found so much, and I've bought so much music, from Bandcamp, just I've never heard of before, and and sometimes these bands have become absolute bands that I love, and just through chance, and so that's it's probably not good enough, but I'm doing my best.
And with you mentioned Bandcamp, I always take the opportunity to try and say this. On the webpage, there's always a webpage for these mixes at stevesmixtapes.com. And at the bottom, there's always some links to buy some of the music that's been featured. I try to put Bandcamp on when I can, because as far as I'm aware, that music goes directly to the artist. And you can support some, fairly small scale artists who are going to struggle to make money elsewhere. So get yourself on Bandcamp, buy a few music, and if it says name your price, give them a few quid anyway. Whatever you can spare. Anyway, step off my soapbox now, and we'll hear your something new choice. This is Brogale with Elevator Music.
Jimmy came up in an elevator. Didn't like it, so he left 2 minutes later. And Peggy is so full of ideas. As he walked back, he saw so many faces on the floor, scattered in a million pieces. And Peggy looked at the gaps in between. And at night they're sleeping as they're lying dreaming. Whoa, they talk about going to war, but that nasty feeling is old. And crazy don't seem crazy anymore. So we woke up with someone else's features, float down the stair, brushing yellow teeth and golden stinkers. And Peggy is drinking tea from Peru. He got a phone call, he said there's someone calling. And down the line, poor Jimmy had his mother bawling. And Peggy, she knew just what to do. And at night they're sleeping as they're lying dreaming. Whoa, they talk about falling in love, but that nasty feeling is cold. And crazy isn't crazy anymore. As a lion dreaming. Whoa.
That was Brogale with Elevator Music from their self-titled album from last year. So do you want to tell us a bit about why you chose that one, Johnny?
Yeah, like I say, I mean, I've just mentioned before about how I find new music, and I found these through neither of those ways. I found these as a support band. And I do find that over the years, I've quite often gone to gigs just to see the support band. The main act hasn't necessarily been the band that I want to see. So I saw Brogale supporting the Mary Wallopers, who I had seen the previous year as a support band supporting the Saw Doctors. So this was almost like 2 steps down the ladder. And yeah, they were absolutely fantastic. What I'll say is, when Peel died, I had this sort of almost crisis that, who was going to sort of look out for these scruffy kids, in back bedrooms around the country, in garages, in, upstairs rooms, in pubs, getting together, playing music, writing songs, recording. Who's going to support them? Who's going to, promote them? Who's going to be looking out for them? Because it just seemed that those supply lines for, publicity were just cut off overnight. And you know what? I needn't worried, because still to this day, young people, they're finding each other, they're getting together, they're doing this stuff. Perhaps even it's easier for them now, given modern technology, but they scratch the surface and you'll find them. This stuff is happening, and it's out there, and it's refreshing when you do come across something. And I look at these kids, because they are kids, I'm getting on now, and
another feeling.
Yeah, and they're turning out this splendid, vigorous noise, and it just gives me absolute faith. I've said for many years that young people are going to, save us from the shitstorm that our generation's created in the world, and I sort of believe that, because they just seem more with it and more reasoned and clearer about what's right and what's wrong, and I have absolute faith in young people, and it's great. So when I go out and I see, some kids, as I say, get up on stage and make a racket like elevator music like you've just heard, it's fantastic, and yeah.
So they're from Falkirk, and obviously, so we started off in North Wales. We went over the Atlantic to America. We came back to Falkirk, and now we're back over to America for your Something Borrowed choice. And I have to say, from my point of view, Johnny, this was a bit of a masterstroke, because you've chosen a song by one of my favourite bands covering one of my favourite songs by one of my favourite artists. So well done on that. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. One of my favourite bands, and it was almost this sort of dawning realization when I was thinking, you're trying to narrow down this list, and you've got the categories, and I'm thinking, yeah, I would love this, and I would love this, and oh look, there's one category that is borrowed, and I can put the Cowboy Junkies and I can put Bruce Springsteen together.
Yeah.
And yeah, what could be better? Margot Timmins, she's got the most beautiful, soulful, tender delivery. Her voice, it's
and you can spot her voice. It's so distinctive, isn't it?
So
without
unique.
Doing anything gimmicky or unusual.
No,
halfway through the first line, you can spot it.
It sounds like she could be sat there drying her hair or doing her nails or making a sandwich or something. It just feels completely effortless, but perfect all the same. And then Springsteen, is one of the greatest storytellers of well, not just this century, but maybe last century too. And you get them and they put them together, and it's fantastic. It's a beautiful, beautiful song, and it's a wild story. It's a fantastic story, but delivery.
And it's one of my favourite lyrics of his. I mean, there were so many classic lines. I'm not going to start quoting them because I'll bore on the non-Bruce fans, but it is one of those songs. As you know, I'm not that much of a lyrics man sometimes. Lyrics can pass me by a bit. But you stick this on and I will sing along with it all the way through.
Yes, me too. But yeah, so there's that. Musically, it's fantastic as well. They've made such a perfect job of it. I don't know. Could I say that I prefer this version over the Springsteen original? I don't know. It's a tough choice, but I'll tell you, there's an outro on the Cowboy Junkies version. There's sort of like a pseudo snare crack, and then the whole band comes together.
And I was quite surprised by that, because by their standards, it's surprisingly boisterous, isn't it?
It's a little out of character, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's perfect, and it just sort of swings through, and it's all this beautiful crescendo, right to the end. It's magnificent, beautiful interpretation. It's utterly, overwhelmingly beautiful.
The screen door slams, Mary's dress waves,
Like a vision, she dances across the porch as the radio plays. Roy Orbison is singing for the lonely. Hey, that's me, and I want you only. Don't turn me home again, I just can't face myself alone again. Don't run back inside, darling, you know just what I'm here for. So you're scared and you're thinking that maybe we ain't that young anymore. Show a little faith, there's magic in the night. You ain't a beauty, but hey, you're alright. Yeah, and that's alright with me. You can hide with your covers and study your pain. Make crosses from your lovers, throw roses in the rain. Waste your summers praying in vain for a savior to rise from these streets. Well, now I'm no hero, that's understood. All redemption I can offer is beneath this dirty hood, with a chance to make it good somehow. Hey, what else can we do now except roll down the windows and let the wind blow back your hair? Well, the night's busting open and these two lanes will take us anywhere. We got one last chance to make it real, trading these wings on some wheels, climbing back, heaven's waiting on down the tracks. Oh, come take my hand, we're riding out tonight to case the promised land. Oh, Thunder Road, oh, Thunder Road, oh, Thunder Road. There were ghosts in the eyes of all the boys you sent away. They haunt this dusty beach road in the skeleton frames of burned out Chevrolets. They scream your name at night in the street. Your graduation gown lies in rags at their feet, and in the lonely cool before the dawn, you hear their engine roaring on. But when you get to the porch, they're gone. On the wind, so merry climb in. It's a town full of losers, and I'm pulling out of here to win.
So a big favourite with both my guest mixer and myself, that was the Cowboy Junkies and their cover of Springsteen's Thunder Road. It appeared on a bonus disc of covers on the One Soul Now album that came out in 2004. And if you want to look that up, there's also covers of 17 Seconds by The Cure, Lungs by Townes Van Zandt, Darkness, Darkness by the Youngbloods, and Helpless by Neil Young. I remember the very first time I heard the Cowboy Junkies, it was on a Radio 1 Saturday afternoon show, and I can't remember who was presenting it, but they did an interview with them, and I came in halfway through the interview, and they're obviously talking about the Trinity sessions. So they were talking about how they'd been rehearsing in this church with the one microphone dangling from the ceiling, and the guitarist had been sort of messing around with Blue Moon, and she just come and sung this tune on top of Blue Moon off the top of her head. And I thought, oh, that sounds vaguely interesting. And then they played it. And you know when a song just like slaps you across the face, and you think, wow. So yeah, went and bought that the next day. I love it, and I've already, it's good to see them making a second appearance. They were in episode 6, which is my feminist episode that I did, inspired by our mutual friend Joanna. Sun Comes Up, it's Tuesday Morning. I chose for that, which I also adore.
There are so many within their canon. There are so many just absolutely fantastic songs, and it's one of those. You might listen to an album and you think, oh yeah, this song. And you don't want it to end, and then it ends, and for that couple of seconds between the songs, you're a bit but then the next one starts. Oh no, this song. It just one after the other. It's relentless. I don't know. They're just a perfect band. They're fantastic.
Now, Johnny, I know that from our communication leading up to this call that you did and ah a bit about your mix. There were you sent me an original list, and then I looked back on the Spotify list, and all of a sudden there was 45 songs on it because you were having second thoughts about some. But I did say to you that I didn't want you to lose your Something Blue choice, because once again, you've chosen a band that I like, but also a song from my very favourite album by them. So the band is Yola Tango. The album, which I absolutely love, is And Then Nothing Turned Itself Inside Out from 2000. And you've gone for Tears Are In Your Eyes. What's the thinking behind this choice then?
It's beautiful.
It is.
Is that enough? Yeah, it is gorgeous, and like you say, the whole album is just a wonderful set. It's a piece, and it's one of those that is, well, people of our generation, we sit down at side A, show me and we'll listen through an album, and I don't think that happens much these days. Some of the young,
but this is now with an identity, isn't it?
It is. It's one of those that you sit down and it's almost like reading a book. You start at the start and you end at the end, and it takes you on this journey.
And what an ending as well. I'll put a link up to.
I could have chosen that. That would have,
Could have chosen that. I wouldn't have got all 18 minutes in of it, but I will put a link to it because it's well worth a listen. A beautiful song, hypnotic, mesmerising. I would say.
Definitely. Yola Tango.
But like Velvet Underground, a band with their noisy side as well.
I was just going to say, in some ways, very similar to what I've just said about the Velvet Underground. They have these nice little gentle songs, which and I have this theory, which I'm sure isn't true, but I like to think it, that James and George are in the band, who are James plays bass, George plays drums. They're solid, they're steady, and they turn out these nice songs. And then Ira Kaplan, who he sings, he plays guitar, he turns up and he does this magnificent 10-minute wig out on guitar. But when you see them live, it's almost that you see James and George just sort of, give each other a glance. Here he is heading to the pedal board, and we're off, But they are absolutely rock solid right through. There's just this composed, solid bass that Ira Kaplan can just go wild over the top of. And it's brilliant. But the songs that I always sort of end up swerving back to, just like the Velvet Underground, are those ones that are a bit more muted, a bit more gentle. There's a bit of sway, a bit of lullaby, melody, chime, these key words that will keep coming back, throughout sort of any musical decisions I make. I just think there's two sides to Yola Tango, and as much as the noisy side is good fun, it's the George and James driven stuff that I really enjoy, and I think this is a perfect example. And George's voice on this is just incredible.
that you haven't slept in days. You tell me sleeping only makes you tired.
Yola Tengo with Tears Are In Your Eyes from the 2000 album And Then Nothing Turned Itself Inside Out, which if you haven't heard, I would suggest you go and hear it immediately, and I'll put a link to its final track, Night Falls on Hoboken, because it's 18 minutes of absolute wonder. Okay, so that's a nice gentle song. I'm going to take it down a little bit further, and you've gone for Graham Parsons for this one.
I have, yeah. I had a lot of difficulty. I had an awful lot of difficulty with this choice, as you know, Steve, because I was adding track after track after track and subbing them in. And I'll tell you why. Music is all my life. It's just been something that I've lent on, that supported me. It's always there. It's always on. And I just find it's almost as though my life is a soundtrack, and it supports me through life. And so the ones that are a bit slower, a bit more gentle, a bit more thoughtful, well, I don't know, I suppose they're the ones that have been there in the bad times. And so choosing one to sort of like bare my soul on, to you, was really quite difficult. And I chose songs, I chose one after the other. And I could, to myself, I could iterate just why that meant so much to me. But I just didn't really feel like I could just do that. Like I said, at the top of this, I'm a private person. So in the end, I just went for something that is nice and gentle, but has never been associated with any horrific time in my life. So And yeah, as you said, it's Graham Parsons. But more than that, it's Graham Parsons and Emmylou Harris.
Yeah.
Because on Spotify, I might say Graham Parsons, but Emmylou's such a big part of this song. And it's I don't know. My dad was a big country music fan. He was a good Catholic boy from Ireland, and country music was what they listened to. And growing up in the car, in the house, it was country music. And now in later years, I listen to a lot of Americana. Mm-hmm. Before that, I've gone through, still listen, lots of folk rock, lots of country. And so from the old time country music, Hank Williams, Johnny Cash, things like that, through to the Americana of today, it almost feels like Graham Parsons is the conduit, and it's that link right through. And yeah, the GP and Grievous Angel albums are just stacked with absolutely fantastic songs. It's great. This one in particular, I just find it incredible. It's a 3-verse song, and each verse is about a friend of Graham Parsons who has died. And it's really quite moving. So there's 3 verses, and he sings them, one after the other. And when you start reading about the song and you find out that he recorded it, and then before it was even released, before the album was pressed, he died himself. So we never heard it in the context of the album. And it's about his 3 friends dying, and true stories as well, that they're all, factual. It's just quite an incredible piece of music. And on top of that, it's fantastic. So yeah.
Okay, let's hear it now. So this is "In My Hour of Darkness" by Graham Parsons.
In my hour of darkness, in my time of need, oh Lord, grant me vision, oh Lord, grant me speed. Once I knew a young man went driving through the night, miles and miles without a word, but just his high beam lights. Who'd have ever thought they'd build such a deadly Denver band, to be so strong, to take so long, as it would till the end. In my hour of darkness, in my time of need, oh Lord, grant me vision, oh Lord, grant me speed. Another young man safely strummed his silver string guitar, and he played to people everywhere. Some say he was a star, but he was just a country boy. His simple songs confess, and the music he had in him, so very few possess. In my hour of darkness, in my time of need, oh Lord, grant me vision, oh Lord, grant me speed. Then there was an old man, kind and wise with age, and he read me just like a book, and he never missed a page.
From 1974's Grievous Angel, that was Graham Parsons with In My Hour of Darkness. Now, our next category is Around the World, and another one of my standard questions is, you've talked about, your love of Americana. Do you get outside of America and the UK, listen to stuff from around the world very often?
UK, yeah. I'm Irish.
Yeah, okay.
Geopolitical comment, but yeah. So I mean, my sort of weekly listening, my daily listening is there's always Irish music, but not so much you sort of the stuff that's clearly influenced by UK and America. As we're going back, sort of a good old traditional Irish music is on all the time. It just feels part of me. I feel just so connected to it, and it feels like it's coursing through me. It just, it's who I am. But beyond that, that isn't what you were asking me. And the answer is probably no, not so much. But funnily enough, I was up in Manchester last weekend, and I have this thing when I go to Manchester, when I go on the train, I always listen to the Smiths as I'm going in, walking through town, and as I'm coming out. Because as a teenager, the Smiths were my band, absolutely through and through. It was, and they still are. They're fantastic. But when I'm going home, I always just make sure, I just put the Smiths on. And funnily enough, I was coming out of Piccadilly on the train last Monday and listening to Hatful of Hollow, and I was just thinking about the high lifestyle guitar parts in things like This Charming Man and Girl Afraid and things like that. And I was thinking, I've never sort of really thought of it before, because to me it was always endlessly Mancunian, the Smiths. But I was listening to it thinking, you know what? And maybe because I'd heard, some songs on previous episodes of this podcast and things like that, I was just thinking, do you know what? Yeah, there's a link. There's an influence for sure. But beyond that, I'm afraid, no, I'm very, I think the kids would say beige.
Okay. Well, the kids say all sorts of things these days, most of which I don't understand.
Me neither.
But you've gone for something Antipodean. You've gone for the Go-Betweens. Just a couple of days ago, I sent you a link to a song that you hadn't heard before, and I'll put a link to it on the webpage. The song that Johnny's gone for is Bye Bye Pride from 1987's Tallulah. The song I sent him was I Don't Want to Be Grant McLennan by Smudge. Did you enjoy that then?
I loved it. It was great. And this is honest truth. I listened to that, and I was laid in bed the other morning before I got up to go to work, and I was just sort of browsing the phone and thought, all right, okay, I'll listen to that. Yeah, what's this? I listened to it and I thought, oh, this sounds really like the Lemonheads. Yeah. Thought, no wonder Steve likes it. And then when I started reading about it, he was the guy, and I sort of remembered a story about Evan Dando going to Australia and ended up staying there 2 years or something. And this is the guy, and he sort of wrote half of Come On Feel the Lemonheads and things like that, wasn't it? So I'm not surprised, but I hadn't heard it before. But I thought it was a great song. It really was, yeah.
Yeah, and then in the middle of it goes into a bit of
it does. He says
pride, doesn't it? Yeah. So it was great.
Didn't know that Mr. Lonesome didn't know a heart could be tied up in a ransom. Yeah,
no, it's a clever little song. So if you're out there, you don't know Smudge. Tom Morgan was a good friend of Evan Dando's. He co-wrote quite a bit of stuff in the sort of Come On Feel the Lemonheads era. I've seen Smudge live in Manchester. An excellent live band. There's a couple of they've got a few albums out, but there's one called Manilow in particular, which is great. So anyway, let's hear it now. This is the Go-Betweens with Bye Bye Pride.
A white moon appears like a hole in the sky. The mangroves go quiet. In La Brisa de la Palma, a teenage Rasputin takes the sting from a gin. When a woman learns to walk, she's not dependent anymore. A line from her letter, May 24. And out on the bay, the current is strong. A boat can
trees open their wings, he goes home again. He dreams resistance, they talk commitment. Things change over long distance. Took the shirt off his back, the ice from his head, and left him for dead. But I didn't know someone be so lonesome. Didn't know a heart could be tied up and held for ransom. Till take your shoes and go outside. Stride over stride. Walk to that tide. 'Cause the door is open wide. Take your shoes and go outside. Stride over stride. Walk to that tide. 'Cause the door is open wide. Stride over stride. Walk to that tide. Bye bye pride. 'Cause the door is open wide. The door is always open wide. The door is always open wide.
The Go-Betweens with Bye Bye Pride from 1987's Tallulah. The Go-Betweens cropped up in conversation with Ian Forth on episode 2, and in which I discovered the Go-Betweens have a bridge named after them.
I didn't know that, no. And I've listened to episode 2, so but I've slept since then.
The next category on the list I was intrigued by, because knowing your taste in music, I thought, well, what's Johnny going to choose that's left of centre? So I saw what you put up there, and I thought, oh, that's interesting. One of the things that caught my eye, so the song was by Orbital, okay, but one of the things that caught my eye is that one of the contributors to it was David Holmes. Now, I really like David Holmes' album Let's Get Killed, which came out in 97, which is a bit sort of DJ shadowish. It's lots of chopped up samples and stuff. It's that sort of neck of the woods. And you might think you don't know any of the songs, but if you listen to it, you will have heard some bits in soundtracks and things like that. But it wasn't David Holmes or Orbital that you chose it for. It was the other person listed. It was Mike Garry. So tell us about Mike Garry, because until you told me about him and sent me the link to his website, I knew nothing about Mike Garry.
Okay, yeah. Right. Do you know what I said about support acts?
Yeah.
So last autumn, we went to see John Cooper Clarke at Bucks and Opera House. Fantastic Matchman Theatre. Can recommend it. Anybody who wants a night out. Beautiful place. And there were a couple of poets supporting him, and one of them was Mike Garry. And and I was just absolutely taken aback. He's a guy. I mean, he's from Manchester. You know, he's like me. He sounds like me. He looks like me.
I have to say, he sounds even more Manchester. I mean, he's
he's a proper
Manchester.
Yeah. He is. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm from the suburbs. You know, it's like, but I must admit, when I went up to him at the merch stand afterwards, I said something, and he looked at, where are you from? I was like, okay. I just sort of felt this almost kinship, this like, he's like me and I'm like him. He had a record. This song wasn't on the record. The album that he's put out was with a string quartet, sort of doing soundtracks that he does his poetry over.
Yeah, I listened to a bit of that last night, actually. I enjoyed that. Handwritten Miracles.
Sorry?
Called Handwritten Miracles, isn't it? I'll put it.
That's right, Handwritten Miracles.
Yeah, no, I quite enjoy that. I haven't listened to the whole thing yet, but yeah,
there's some really sort of nice stuff, but there's some real hard hitting stuff as well. And he's I don't know, he just I don't want to say he's like some kind of Manx Scally, but that I think he'd quite like that. That's the sort of aura that he exudes. He's done a lot of work, and he started off doing a lot of work with prisoners and in young offenders units. He works in sort of mental health hospitals and youth clubs and pubs and working men's clubs and things like that. So, pushing poetry out to places where you wouldn't normally expect it, and letting people who wouldn't usually hear it and think that they would enjoy it, giving them a chance, opening their ears and their eyes to it. And he seems to have done remarkably well with that. Why is it left of centre? Why is it, avant-garde? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Well, I have to say, for you, a bit of poetry over some techno, I would say in the Johnny Mac world, that counts as left of centre.
That's fine. I justified it by sort of thinking to myself, look, if on the opening night of the Abbey in Dublin back in 19 or whatever, if W.B. Yeats had stood up and recited an Irish airman foresees his death over some jazz band, then people would have been,
It's interesting because we've had a bit of poetry, because David Quantick, obviously, we had quite a bit of Larkin and Auden in that one. We had Gracie, who chose Simon Armitage as well, who still hasn't replied to my email asking him to come on here, but I will persist. I think he'd be a great guest, don't you?
I do absolutely, yeah.
It'd be absolutely brilliant.
And it's the sort of thing that seems up his street, It's
Anyway, I can't play all of this song because it's a little bit on the lengthy side. It's about 12 minutes long.
But it's worth it, Steve. It's worth it.
Well, yeah, but I'll try and make sure that we have bits that contain a lot of Mike Garry in them. Anyway, as he is the principal reason for the choice. So here it is. This is Tonight in Belfast.
Like I'm
kind of talking here. Tonight, you're gonna need a spacesuit. I wanna hold you up so high. You're gonna need a spacesuit.
Now, as any of you know who've listened to Steve's mixtapes before, I am quite dictatorial with the mixes. There are 9 categories that people have to stick with, although I have let one or two people have a little bit of leeway here and there. But in amongst all of this dictatorialness, I do allow them one wildcard choice, something they can choose whatever they like. Now, the band you've chosen are not from Minneapolis. And the reason I say that is when I looked them up, the first band that came up on Google is a band from Minneapolis who recorded an album, interestingly, called Dulce et Decorum Est, because they are called the War Poets. But this is not the War Poets. This is a band from... I didn't write down where they're from. Do you know where they're from?
I know exactly where they're from.
Go on, then tell us.
Well, they're a bunch of ordinary kids from Rochdale.
Okay.
And they have... extraordinary knack of crafting brilliant songs, or they did have back in the day. They were around late 80s, early 90s. And yeah, it's the sound. It's, I suppose, a there's a constant, incessant melodic noise, which just sort of throbs all the way through their one album. And
It reminded me a little of Corduroy by The Wedding Present, this song.
Oh yeah, well, that's a very good point. Yeah, yeah. I've never really thought of that, and I have this thing, and I really struggle to link different things. Where I can be sitting watching a film, and Lucy, my partner, will say, "Oh, that was such a body. They were in whatever film we watched the other week," and I'll look at it and say, "No, no, no," and I accept sort of almost everything in isolation. And so if I'm watching a film, those people, those actors, are those characters.
Well, that's interesting.
I can't link them. I can't say, "Oh yeah, they were in whatever," or "They were in this," and
And I think in that way, I'm probably quite the opposite, because as you know, my wife and I watch very little television, but when we do, if somebody pops up and I think, "Oh, where have I seen him before?" I sometimes have to stop it and look it up, because I won't settle to what that person's doing until I can remember what they've been in.
Oh, I don't even see it. I remember we went years ago to watch the Wes Anderson film at the cinema called Moonrise Kingdom, and it was a great film. It was really, really good. And when we came out and we were driving home, and Lucy said something about, Bruce Willis. Now, I sort of know who Bruce Willis is. He's the man in the vest, and I was like, "No, he wasn't in that film." She says, "Yeah, he was." I was like, "No, he's the one, no, he wasn't in that film." We got home and Googled it, and there he was, as large as life. There's Bruce Willis in the film I've just sat for 2 hours in the cinema watching, and not even registered that was him.
In a most unlikely thing, you've actually chosen to talk about a film I've seen. Really bizarre, because that's the one about the scout troop and the boy and the girl that run away, isn't it? Yeah. And the odds of that, as you know, because I watch fantastically few films. I think I've watched 2 in the last 3 years. So you actually pick a film I've seen. That's very, 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 very random indeed. Anyway, so let's get back to your wild card from Rochdale. This is the War Poets, and the song is Catapults. Catapult, not an REM cover, although I would have been quite happy to hear their take on it, but that was the War Poets from the 2025 album Keeping Spiders. Yeah, I like that a lot. I'll listen to some more of them, I think. Okay, so we're moving on to your finale. Now, Spotify, as you sort of alluded to before, can be a bit remiss with its credits sometimes, and sometimes it's not always entirely clear who is doing what. But I've got this down as this song by being Ali Bain and Jay Unger. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
And I think it's from an album called Transatlantic Sessions.
Yeah,
But I also looked up a bit
Sessions,
about the song, and it was used in the title theme of a documentary series about the American Civil War.
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you want to tell us a bit about that?
Not about the program of the American Civil War.
No, not that. No, the song.
But I can wax lyrical about the song.
Please
yeah,
do.
Actually, yeah. So look, this is the closer. You know, this is the finale, and I don't know. I was sort of thinking when I put this list together, oh, well, that's going to have to be something bombastic, a real sort of, end of the set, closer, and I really couldn't do that. It almost feels that, to me, a mixtape, it's almost like a metaphor for life, and it starts and you go through, it's not something you'd pick the odd song out of. You listen to it from the start to finish. And this, I don't know whether it's just that I think this is a nice way to drift away. This is how I see it ending. it sounds like a sort of an age-old air, carried across the Atlantic in a coffin ship by the emigrants, fleeing the hunger, dreaming of the new world, but it's actually fairly recent. I think it was written in the 1980s by Jay Younger, and he used to run in upstate New York the Ashcan Fiddle and Dance Camps. And this...
Yeah, I saw that. I looked that up. I was intrigued as to a fiddle and dance camp. That sounds
fantastic. But I mean, might not be for you, but to me, that would just be bliss. That would be absolutely fantastic. But yeah, and so this song, it was written when they ran these camps every year. This was sort of like it was a farewell waltz that they played, and as everybody drifted away, for another year, and you know what? It's when you listen to it, that's exactly what it sounds like. It sounds like parting. It sounds like the end of something. It sounds like drifting away. When you think about your own impending demise, I don't know, I just sort of think this is the sort of music that would sort of exude from my body as I was laid on a bed surrounded by black veil wearing relatives.
Hang on, so this track is the sound of your soul leaving your body and heading for the afterlife.
That's what it feels like, but it's a beautiful sound. It's not a sad thing. It's a beautiful sound. And I just think, if this was the last thing I ever heard and just drifted away, what a way to go.
It's interesting you talk about the finale choice. Of all the things that we've done, and I've done quite a few of these interviews now, one of the category that fascinates me the most is the finale one. Because Hit the Ground Running, there's lots of different type songs people have chosen, but the purpose is very simple. It's almost a one-dimensional choice. I think it's a good category to have, but there's not a lot of nuance to it, is it? It's something that's going to grab your attention straight away. And then all of the other categories can be interpreted in different ways. But the finale's been a really interesting one because I chose on the one I did, the women only one. I chose Cinnamon by Nina Simone because that's epic and it builds and it's astonishing in that way. I interviewed the last interview I did. The person chose something because they said it sounded a bit like it was something that would play over the end credits of a TV show, which I was interested. And then you're here talking about this is parting, drifting away, and your soul drifting off into the afterlife. So it's been really interesting the different ways people have interpreted it. I kind of thought everyone will choose things with big 6-7 minute wig out guitar endings, but actually the diversity of what people have chosen has been really fascinating.
That was my sort of gut instinct, when I first looked at the categories. But as soon as I started putting together a list, I knew that isn't how it would end for me. I knew it would have to be something,
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd say overall a very fine mix of my particular favourites. And there are a few things I didn't know, and I think it sits together really, really nicely. So, if any of you do want to have it on as a playlist for each of these mixes, if you go to stevemixtapes.com and you pick the mix in question, there's normally either a YouTube playlist or a Spotify playlist, and in most cases there is both. So it just remains for me to say, Johnny, thank you ever so much for coming on. It's been a really interesting chat. I know you were quite nervous about doing this, but I don't know why, because you've talked about your choices of music with passion and with clarity, which is what I would have expected from you.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Steve. It's been an absolute pleasure, a terrifying pleasure, but a joy all the same. Thank you.
All right. I'll see you in the Wedding Present Forum soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.